It did, because one more thing that I forget is I have a Mac, which has a very high resolution, high definition screen, HD screen.
Yeah.
I also have another monitor, the one that I'm showing the Photoshop on, and that, while we're talking about layers and magnification, has less pixels. It's not an HD monitor. So it doesn't have as many pixels across or tall. So my gradient background came up as 33%.
Yeah.
But if I brought that over to my Mac monitor, it would probably be 100%.
Yeah.
Because
I have
it
a
can
Mac
show.
too. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. So it depends. If I have a laptop, my monitor is going to be really small, or an iPad. So that monitor, it may show up as a 10% magnification because it doesn't have a lot of pixels on it. So it really depends on the resolution of your screen and the size of your screen, what your magnification is.
So I have a question,
Yeah.
because I struggle with this when I'm playing around with it, and I do look at it when I download a picture. But we were able to bring it up to 100. So, and it filled the screen. So how do you condense that and keep it at 100? You can't, right?
Well, you can work with it at 100,
Mhm.
and then I would just use the scroll bars that are at the bottom or the side to move my image over, back and forth, up and down, so
Oh,
that I
gotcha.
can get to the whole image.
To the whole image. Okay.
So when I'm retouching, when I'm doing brush work,
Mhm.
that's when I really need to understand that if I'm looking at a 33 magnification, I'm not seeing 100%. So as I'm retouching and putting pixels onto my background that I'm drawing, it's not getting to every single pixel. So you
Right.
want to make sure that as you're working, especially with the brushes, you're at 100% magnification so that you know what you're working on.
Okay.
Okay. You have a question? Yeah. See your hand up.
Yeah, so I got this magazine right here, and you were just talking about like the like grainy look and what to do with that, and I can't tell if these pictures like actually have that like implanted in the background or if it's actually just the paper and the ink. And is that like something they do?
And they definitely can do that. Sometimes they will put a texture onto it with the paper or with the halftone screening
Yeah.
when they print something. And if you take a magnifying glass and look at it, you can actually see the halftone dots in that printed piece. If you took the same magnifying glass and put it onto your display, you would see little red, green, and blue dots. Those are the pixels of your screen.
On the not on the magazine paper, the actual like design software, so that doesn't get printed, right?
No, the design software doesn't get printed. However, if they scanned something that had already been printed, then it may have the texture from the printing in the scan. So it's a vicious little cycle. And that's why I say you always need to look at the images that you're given and determine if someone has done something to it. And when I say done something to it, they may have enlarged it, saved it, and then shrunk it back down, saved it again, enlarged it again. All of a sudden, you're dealing with fake pixels that Photoshop created, or if they saved it as a JPEG enough, we'll get some compression noise in the image, which is a bad quality element. And I'll show you pictures of that when we get to the color section of the course. Okay. All right. So let's go back into the background. I now have my background screen with this background image. Command 0 will bring my my image into this screen. So let's see, Command 0 will fill my screen with that image. And so now it's at 43%. Okay, I need to bring these cars onto this, and let's build a piece where maybe we have the cars on one side, and then we'll have some text on the other side. So if I start with my red car, notice the red car has transparency in the background, and notice the shadow. The shadow, I can see a little bit of gray, but I can also see a little bit of the checkerboard. That means the shadow, when it was created, has transparency to it. So it's not full solid gray, it's see-through gray. So at this point, I'm going to drag this off of here. And I can take this layer 1 of the red car and just drag it over on top of the green. And you'll notice I can see through this. As it goes down to the bottom, the shadow gets darker because it's seeing the darker. If I'm up here, the shadow's a little lighter. All right, so once I have that in position, I can size this, I can change it. But one thing I want to do right away is in the layers panel, name it. Red car. This is the red car layer. So I know what I have. I'm not sure what size it should be until I see the other cars. So I want you to grab the orange car. It has a transparent background as well. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just grab this layer, drag it, and drop it on top of the other image. And you can see that this car is much smaller. Number of pixels. So this is a bigger image. It has more pixels, higher resolution than this one. Lastly, I'm going to do the yellow car and grab this one and drag it over here as well. And you'll notice this one's facing the other direction. This is going to be interesting. If we wanted these to all be in the same direction, there's something called editing a file, and we can size them. Let's say this red car is too big. So I'm going to, when I'm in my move function, and I have show transform controls checked off, I get this bounding box. I'm going to make that a little smaller, this car. If I went over to my guides and put in a guide here at 2, and then another guide over here maybe at 12. Now I know how big these cars should be. I want to get the tail end of the car on this one and the bumper over here on this one. I can do the same thing once I say I'm happy with that. I can activate this car, which is going to be orange car. Make sure you name your layers. Orange car. Going to move that so that the tail is there and the bumper just comes out to meet this one. Good. And now this last one, which is my yellow car. Good. Now this one, when I size it down so that it fits within the same width, you'll notice it's facing the other direction. I think that looks kind of funny. Unless maybe I put it in the middle. Maybe I take this one there, put the orange car here. Maybe then it would look okay if I had them this direction. But typically what I'd want is maybe all 3 to be in the same direction. So with the yellow car selected in my layers panel, notice that's highlighted. I can come over and say, edit. And there's something called transforms. Transforms allows you to size something, rotate it. skew it. It also allows us to flip it horizontally. Flipping horizontally is just going to turn it 180 degrees. What's the problem when I do a mirror or a flip? Anybody know? Let's zoom in on this. When I look at this text right here, it's backwards. This doesn't say Hot Wheels anymore. It's backwards text. So to flip something, it's just like looking at something in the mirror. You're seeing the reverse image. So I'd probably need to flip the other ones. Maybe put this one back and take these two. And what I did was I clicked on this red car and then I hold the shift key and clicked on the orange car. What that did was it made both of these, you can see in the layers panel, they're both active. So now if I said image and transform, come on, and horizontally flip, now these two cars are flipped and facing the other direction. Maybe I'm going to select all three layers, yellow car, orange, and red. And as long as I'm inside the bounding box that's active for all three cars, I can move those over here. So maybe now, if I put this at 30 inches over, now as I move my cars, I'm going to get them so they're all sitting with that on the edge. If I take the red car, I might use my arrow keys and move it just slightly over. The yellow car, use the arrow key, move it a little bit the other way, and the orange car. So now they're lined up. We had a little bit of a issue with the angles that they were photographed. And so what I can do is when something's active, when the orange layer is active, if I go just outside this corner anchor point, notice my cursor changed to a double arrow. That means I can rotate something. So I could try to rotate this a little bit. And if that looks better, more like this one, then to update it, I could hit the checkbox, or you can double click on the image. So left double click actually did a check. So that one's good. This one I might need to rotate back the other way a little bit. And at some point, it's not going to work. You'd have to skew it. But in that case, they're close enough that it might be okay. So once I have these layers here, I have my background layer. Now I could add some text if I wanted. And if I wanted to add text to this, oh, it did not fix it. Restarting my Photoshop. I'm not sure why I'm getting my spinning wheel. Okay, we'll just have to
Cynthia.
wait. Yep. Question?
How did you group it to move it all together?
Okay.
The other
There are
side?
several ways I can do that. If I come over to my layers panel,
Yeah,
I can activate the red layer, and so that it now knows when I'm on the move. When the red is active, you'll notice the bounding box.
yeah,
If I hold the command key and I go to the yellow car,
yeah,
now you notice my bounding box includes both of these, and
correct,
they're
yeah.
both highlighted. If I hold the command key and the orange car, now all three of these are active, and I can see that here. If I click outside, if I click on the background, it now thinks I don't want those highlighted, activated anymore. I can also activate a layer by clicking on that image. So now when I clicked on the red car and the layer, so if I hold the command key again and click on the orange or the yellow car, whoops, excuse me. So I should be able to, with the shift key, add the yellow car,
Yeah,
and the shift key down here, add the orange car.
yeah, I think I was clicking outside of the 3 box.
And that's what's tough. If they didn't have transparent pixels, if they were white in here, you could click on them because those are actual pixels. But it's if you click the transparency part, it thinks you don't want to activate that image anymore.
Okay,
Okay, good. Good questions. All right, so if I go into the text mode, hopefully it doesn't give me the spinning wheel. There we go. When I'm in text mode, it gives me this funky little cursor. What that's doing is the bottom of that little I-beam that has a horizontal line on it, that's going to be the baseline of my text where all the bottoms of the letters are going to align. So when I click there, it gives me a little blinking cursor, and I could type in red car, or if I knew what this car's name was, I could put it in there. And I can change the color. So if I wanted this to be white, let's say the white text, I could put a different font. So whatever font you have, you could put a font in there that is appropriate for what we're working on. And so I might just do your typical Arial black because that's a big bold. And then depending on how big something is, I could make this 72 point type. And so I've got red car. Notice that's over here for my text layer, red car. If I want the exact same font, color, size, everything, I just want it to say yellow car for this next one, I could come in here and just like in a regular, I could put in a return and I could type in yellow car. And so depending on, oops, I don't think I activated it. So this one gave me another layer is what it did. So if I come back into this yellow car layer and I activate it, make sure that my blinking cursor's at the end and put in a return, then I could put orange car. So
mine's
this,
turning mine black and picking up the background.
what was that?
Mine's, so when I go to change the color on the text,
Yeah.
it's making it black and it's picking up the background.
Oh, okay. So when you're in the text mode, have you
Yep.
highlighted the text like this?
Yeah, see, that's what it looks like. The red car, that's what it looks like.
Okay. Now, if you click anywhere else in the picture other than the text, what happens?
Nothing.
So it still stays like that?
Yeah,
Huh.
but in the navigator picture, it shows it white.
Oh, that's peculiar.
I know, it is weird.
Okay. We'll check that out in a second and
Yeah.
see. Okay. What I've done here is 2 separate layers. One layer has the red car text. And when I'm moving that, you'll see that that's here. And then I have this other text layer that has yellow. I put a return and typed in orange. So this is actually 2. I'm going to move this out to 8. Get this text to align with that. Get this text to align. Now, if this is real text, I have to highlight these 2 and I have to change the leading. Leading in text is line spacing. So if I put in line spacing, and said that I wanted, 300 points of line spacing. Now I've got a lot more space and I can move this text. I'd probably need 600 for my text. So when I highlight these two lines and say, make this 600 points of leading, it's now moved and probably 500. Okay, so now I have two different layers that are text, the orange car, the yellow car, and the red car, plus the background layer. By saving these, I can now go back in and change this. If I wanted to break these two text pieces apart, I could make a third layer and put orange car text by itself. So we can do anything that we need to do with these files or these layers because we left them as layers. Okay. Now, who was having the trouble with their text?
It was me, Christine, but I figured it out.
Oh, okay. All right. At any time, we can always share your screen and see what you're working on.
I
Now,
use two different computers.
okay. Did anyone else come up with anything?
Excuse me, Professor.
Yeah.
You are supposed to open Photoshop at the same time you are speaking because I am just putting attention.
Okay, that's fine. And so if you want to just watch the demo, you can. And here's my issue. Some students in this class have already taken graphics at the high school level when they were in the tech school or something, or they've used it on their own and learned. Some students are brand new to Photoshop. So what I'm trying to do is give you, if you're experienced with Photoshop, you can take the files, do whatever you want as I'm working on it, and you can show us what you came up with. If you just want to watch me do things, that's okay. And then afterwards, see if you can do the same thing with the files that I support. Okay. So I don't want you to try to do it and watch me because then you'll probably fall behind. But
yeah, that's happening. That's why.
Okay. All right. And that's fine. I do get that. And Zach, do you have a question?
So if you like, what steps would you start taking to like add like shadows and like extra lights, like, like when you're underwater and you see like the
Sure.
sunlight, like that kind
And
of
so
stuff,
in a
right?
case like that, there are all sorts of different filters that we can use and different ways of adjusting this. If these images are supposed to be like, maybe these are Aquaman's cars and they're in this murky green water, what I might do is select one of these and say, okay, well, maybe the opacity shouldn't be so strong on this red car. Maybe it should look like it's in the water. And so by adjusting the opacity, I can make the red car look like it's far away underwater. The yellow car is closer to me, so it's stronger, but it's still underwater. And then the orange car. So this is just playing with the opacity of these. So I'm seeing some of the green background through this, or I could keep all of them at full strength. So don't change the opacity on the layers, but now maybe I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to duplicate it. So this background layer, remember in the drop down, I can duplicate a layer.
I can't see the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, darn. That was dumb. Okay, I'm going to do this again. Thanks. Thanks for giving me the heads up on that. So anyway,
that was just me.
So on this red car, if I change the opacity, it makes it look like it's in this background green murky water. Or I made a copy of this background layer, and let me show you how I did that. If I'm on background layer and I do the drop down and I say duplicate this layer, and I'm going to say top water, name it. If I drag this picture up above all of these cars, notice I don't see the cars anymore. That's because this layer, this green layer, is on top of them. But if I start changing the opacity on this layer, I can now start seeing some of this green. 74% of the green I'm seeing, and that means I'm seeing about 26% of the actual car layers, what's underneath it. So that's one of the ways that I could make it look like they're underwater or have this murkiness to it. If I didn't do that, so I could turn that off, there are other things that I can do under filters. And let me see, I'm on that layer. So under the filters, I could do some things that would change the lighting and lens flare, lighting effects. Some of the lighting effects could change the way that this is going to look. And so if I'm using spotlights or point lights, changing the intensity of that, ambience of that. So there are different ways with filters, and we'll get into filters later on as well. But those are different effects that we can do. Does that answer your question, Zach?
Yeah, and just to be a little more specific, so you can turn the opacity off and then add a filter, right?
Yeah,
Have
I
those
can.
like you can
Yep.
add like a light filter
Right.
or something.
I can add lighting effects. I can add rendering effects. They're all different. A lens flare,
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy when you look at it.
and I guess
Something
for
like
heart,
this one is a lens flare.
right. So if you were to put the lens flare like on the edge of the picture, like
Yep.
in between them, how would you have one lens flare go like over or be like the
On all of
murkiness
them?
thing over it and then one under it, like layering actual.
Okay, so what I'd probably do is create a new layer. And that new layer is where I would put my lens flare. So remember when we're using these, oops, I have to have something on that layer. So maybe if I'm on the yellow layer and I do the lens flare just to that layer, and it will only work on actual pixels. So if you have transparency, it's not going to do it. But let's say I put this at the corner of the car and put that in there. And then it's not going to work on the other cars because those are on a different layer. If I wanted to get them all on that layer, I'd have to put them all on that layer, or do a lens flare on each one. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this, on layers?
I just have like an in general question.
Sure.
We have office or like Zoom hours, so like if we're struggling with something, like if we want one-on-one time using
Definitely. And what I would suggest is sending me an email and
Mm.
then let me know what days of the week or what time's good for you.
Okay.
And I can try to see out of those 2 or 3 that you give me, which one works. And we'll just do a one-on-one.
Okay. 'Cause
That-
this is all like new to me. And like I was trying to like do it as you were.
Right. And that sometimes, I should have said that right up front, that it's sometimes hard if you haven't done it before to see the demo, because I'm not going as slow as you'd probably need to
Mhm.
do it while I'm doing it as well.
Mhm.
So,
I'm, like,
okay.
back and forth between the Zoom and then I'm like losing all my like
I
things.
hear you. And we've all been there when you're learning something new. So good. Okay. All right. So this is the layers. And what else was there on layers? Flattening. Okay. I'm going to leave that where it is and move to the next part of today's lesson, which is all about ethics in using. And when we say ethics, you want to say, what's the big deal? You know, so Photoshop's Photoshop. Everybody knows Photoshop, and Photoshop can do nasty things to pictures. But there's a website out here called Ethics in Graphics or Ethics in Design. I highly recommend that you pin this, you bookmark this, ethicsingraphicdesign.org. They have lots of things that you may need to learn about, from copyright to licensing to usage rights, plagiarism. These are things that you are going to find as a graphic designer, you have to acknowledge and understand. And so here's an example that they had from a while ago. Do you remember seeing this poster from Barack Obama's campaign? This was a while ago, but this was the poster that sort of sent him over the edge. He used it on all of his documentation and mailings and posters and at his rallies. And what this gentleman here, Shepard Fairey, did was he created this, what they call the Hope poster. And the problem was he started creating this. He took an image that he found online. Now, is that legal? Let's start there. Can you just go to Google, search for a picture of Barack Obama, download it, and use that picture? Anybody?
No, you can't.
No, you can't, because you don't own that image or likeness. Someone else took that photograph. That means they own the copyright. And just because it shows up on Google Images or some other site doesn't mean that you can access it and use it. That's unethical.
Right.
Now, here's the issue, is this gentleman took a picture from the Associated Press. The Associated Press is a syndicated news organization. They, different newspapers, magazines, radio, they subscribe, they pay the Associated Press to feed them stories. So they have reporters and photographers that go all over the world, because your local news station or magazine or newspaper can't go all over the world. They don't have reporters everywhere. So they pay the Associated Press to do that for them. And they took one of their photographers took a picture of Barack Obama, gave it to their members, to their subscribers, people that paid for the service, the Associated Press, the AP service. This gentleman saw that on some newspaper website, and he downloaded the picture, and then he went into Photoshop and he posterized it. He sort of made this flatten effect. That's a filter effect. You can just hit a button in Photoshop and pretty much get this effect. And the problem was, this poster blew up and went crazy. Everybody wanted a poster. They were hanging the posters in all of the different offices all over the country. And the problem is, he did not get permission to use that photo. So they took him to court. $25,000 fine. Plus, if he had made any money off of that, he would have had to pay back any of the money that he made from this poster, and a sentence without the term of imprisonment he could have been put into prison for copyright infringement. So just so you know, this is real. And if you use something, let's say for a client, if you use a photo that you find on the web, that client falls in love with your design, your advertisement, or whatever you've created, but you don't have permission, your client as well as you can get sued. So first and foremost, Shepard Fairey said, oh no, I changed the photo. So it was good enough. I actually changed it so much that it's not the original photo anymore. So I can use that. That's not true. You can't do that. And so there's a fair use, what we call fair use when it comes to copyright. Let me show you a video. Oops, hold on. Before I share this, let me make sure I have the sound on, even though the sound is kind of chintzy on this. So when you see something on a magazine cover or on a website for a modeling or fashion, one of the things we always think about is that model, we're actually setting up, like with Barbies and all of this, we're setting up an unreal expectation of what is real and what is photoshopped. And so what this video does, it's only a 3-minute video, but it's somebody recording their Photoshop screen. And as they work on just half of this model to make it so that they could use this in an ad or for the cover, you'll see some of the things that they do. They smooth out the flesh tones, they stretch the skin, they do little tummy tucks on this. And the issue is, it's no longer the original photo, it's changed. And so let's watch this. I'm gonna hit this. So here we have the model. That red coloring that they're putting on, that's masking. That means protect this so that we're not changing it. Thinning her thighs. Augmenting the breasts, changing even the shape of her jawbone. Getting rid of the double chin. Smoothing out the flesh tones. Her eyelashes. Changing the shape of her eyes even. Change her hair color. Out the flesh so that it's not blotchy or blurring it out. Making it so it looks like she doesn't have pores or hair. Pause this here. All right, you can see the size of her arms here versus here, size of her legs versus here, the enhanced waistline, augmented breasts, the makeup is all different. What we're really looking at here is they didn't even need this model at all. They just needed anyone they wanted, put them in there, and then they were going to make them into the emaciated model that they wanted. So that's something that we need to understand. Do you think that that's ethical to do that? Yeah, Gabby.
So in my opinion, I don't think it's like right to do, especially like in this day and age where a lot of people like struggle with like body dysmorphia. I know like there are some companies out there that are open to say that they don't use Photoshop. They use like the real model to like show that it's okay to be like the size that you are. It's okay to have like the imperfections because nobody's perfect.
Mhm.
Because I know like Victoria's Secret had backlash for like the things that they've done that weren't like okay. So I personally, I don't think it's okay. Maybe just like smoothing out like the skin or just like adding highlights in, but changing the body completely is to me is unethical.
Okay. Gabriel.
Okay, I believe it depends, because if you give me the permission to do it, I believe you don't have problem with it.
Good. Okay. And Zach, what do you think?
I think it's interesting, to say the very least, because if it's recognizable, if someone recognizes you from a picture you have been photoshopped in, then they might like actually see you that way versus the most, I don't know, incongruous version of you, and that can, one, actually make you that person, because perception is kind of like a prison, but at the same time, yeah, it might have adverse effects where it'll just like absolutely collapse your like entire spirit, and I think that's the part that I disagree with, where it is unethical.
Okay. Do you know the singer Megan Trainor? She's from
Yeah.
Nantucket. And she grew up on Nantucket. She,
I remember.
yeah, she was always overweight, but she was good with that. She was fine with that. She created a bunch of songs, sang background with other people, and then finally got her own song that it was all about the bass. And all about the bass was kind of like, it's okay to have a little bit more meat on your bones. And so she was smart. When she wrote her contract with the music company, she said, you cannot augment or change my photograph. She did a photo shoot for the cover of her CD and things. And then when it came out, the day that it dropped, she hadn't seen it. And in her contract, it said they could not Photoshop her body. What she was what she was in those pictures. So they picked a picture that she liked for the cover. When it came out, it was a different image altogether because they Photoshopped it. The organization, the producers, the record label changed it. They wanted to sell more records by making her look sexier in the pictures. She
Also
took
said
them. Yeah,
something
they
like
took them to
that.
court. She took them to court, made them stop selling the record until they changed the album cover or the image cover because it was legally in her contract. Now, in a case like that, she had control over the imagery and the creative herself. But if someone wants that, they have to make sure that that's included in the actual ad agency or the company that you're working with, because they could do pretty much plastic surgery to you or your imagery to make it look what they think is better. You may not think it was better. And because she had been preaching, be who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a little overweight or top heavy, bottom heavy, whatever. So she said that was a total farce for her, and it was against what she was preaching to have that happen. So we need to understand that ethics when you're using Photoshop. Another case, when I first started working in the industry, I taught Time Magazine how to use our imaging system. And with that imaging system, we had the ability to clone stamp or get rid of images, pieces of an image. So there was a big party down in New York City, and I don't know if any of you know Darryl Strawberry. He was a basketball player, but also a baseball player.
Yeah.
He had tattoos all over him, and they were very distinctive tattoos. So at this party, his elbow, only his elbow was in the picture. You couldn't see his face or his body or anything, but you saw the elbow with his tattoos. They decided at Time Magazine, or people, to retouch out the elbow. Just take it out of the picture because it was annoying when you didn't see the rest of the person. He heard that they did this and he sued Time Magazine because they removed him. He was at that party in that picture, and he was able to get a settlement from Time Magazine because they photoshopped him out of a picture. It was just his elbow, but it was enough. So we need to understand that anytime we do anything to a picture and change it from reality, we need permission to do that and that it's ethical to do that. Okay. We did annual reports at one company that I worked in, and the chairman of the board was in his 80s. So he was an older guy and he looked older. Every annual report, he would force us to put, when you got a picture of the whole board of directors, everybody would come to one location. We'd hire a photographer, take a picture. He'd have someone else sit in his spot because he lived in New York and we were up in New Hampshire. We'd take the photograph and then we'd Photoshop his head onto the body. The body was a younger person, and the picture that he'd always want us to use was a younger version of him. That's unethical. And this is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ stock exchange. So now we're putting out there that the head of the company, the CEO, looks like this when he doesn't. He's an 80-something year old when he looked like a 60-year-old in the picture that we used that year in the annual report. That was unethical. And we told him so, and he hired another ad agency that would do it. So we could have gotten in a lot of trouble if we had done it. So that was crazy. He was a nutcase. But you don't want to get sued, so standing your ground is a good thing. All right. Now, how do we know if something's copywritten, or how do you know if you can use an image or not? Yeah, Gabby.
Well, you could do a Google like reverse image search to make sure it's not found anywhere else. or even like check to see if there's like a small little watermark, or that's what it's called, right? Watermark.
Yeah, yep.
But I would probably do a reverse Google image search before anything.
Okay. That's smart. But here's an easy way to know if something's copywritten. It is. As soon as someone else takes a picture, they own the copyright. They don't have to go to the copyright office and file paperwork and pay money for the copyright. They own the copyright. If you write a song, if you write a poem, if you publish an article, if you create a painting, all of those creative items, you own the copyright. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to share. So we looked at that one. I'm going to get rid of this. Oops. Okay, so get rid of that. If I go to copyright.gov, this is the United States Copyright, the Copyright Office in Washington. What is a copyright? It really is intellectual property, whatever you create. It's the original works of authorship. It's a tangible expression of form of expression. So it goes with paintings, photographs, illustrations, musical compositions, sound recordings, computer programs, books, poems, blog posts, movies, architectural works, plays, something that you've created, it's yours. And so who's the owner? Whoever created that original. Now, here's the problem. If you're working for a company, let's say you work at an ad agency and they've asked you to create a piece of artwork or create a drawing for a project that you're working on, the person that owns that copyright is the ad agency because they're paying you. You're an employee. Now, if someone hires you as a freelancer, you just work for yourself and you create a piece of artwork for a client. Now you own the copyright. But you say, wait a minute, the client paid me to create this piece of artwork for them or take this photograph of their products or their employees. Why doesn't that company own the copyright? Whoever took the picture or did the drawing, in that case, owns the copyright because they were hiring you to do it, but it wasn't their company. You own the copyright. Now, that's a huge problem. I think it's a problem anyway, because the company wants to use that photograph that you did in many places on their website and their brochures. And now they have to come to you for permission or licensing. You can give the license, the copyright licensing to that company. You're not giving them the copyright. You are giving them the permission to use that in any way they want. You're licensing it to them. Sometimes you charge them. If it's a one-time, that's a price of $100. If they want infinite use or an unlimited license, it may cost them $500 for that same photograph. But now they can use it wherever and however they want. Be careful though, most clients do not understand this. So if you hide it in a contract, they sign the contract and then find out later on, they will be ticked off at you. Talking about it up front, it may just become a non-issue by saying, don't worry about it. Even though I own the copyright, I'm going to give it to you to use unlimited. Put that in writing. So if you ever had a falling out with them, it's in writing that you've given them that unlimited license. You can go on to this website and look at what copyright means. Just so you know, how long does a copyright last? 70 years after the person is dead, after the life of the author or whoever created it. So that means your heirs or your estate or the company that you've created that owns the copyright will still be protected for 70 years. After that, anybody can use it. So a lot of the old works like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that became public domain. Anybody could do it. The song Happy Birthday is copywritten by whoever wrote that, and it's not in public domain yet. And so supposedly every time we sing Happy Birthday, we should be in trouble. We have to pay to use that or get permission to use that. Gabby, you got Grabiel, sorry.
Gabriel, Professor, if you took a picture and you are selling it and I buy it, can I make changes if can I use it the way I want, or what happened?
It depends on how you sell that picture. So if when you bought the picture, if they said you have unlimited usage rights for this picture, that means you can use it however you want. You can Photoshop it, you can put it on a mug and sell those mugs. You can make posters or t-shirts and sell those, not a problem. If they say, no, this is a one-time use or a limited use for an advertisement that you're doing, you can't use that photo again in a brochure or on a website. You have to pretty much spell out what you want to do. Okay. Aha. I see that Scott put up there, the Warner settled $14 million and the court declared Happy Birthday to You is now in public domain. So that's good, because people were actually changing the words to Happy Birthday as they were singing them, just trying to be funny so that they wouldn't get in trouble with the people that owned Happy Birthday, which is kind of funny. Okay, it is now in public domain. Good. All right, I'm going to share this again. And so here's one of the other issues we have. When you create a photograph, let's say you took a picture of the Super Bowl, the winning goal, going across the line, snap that picture, and it's the best picture that anyone ever took. But now you put it out on Facebook, you put it out on your website or your blog, and now people are starting to steal it. How do you protect that picture? One thing you can do to get legal coverage is you can actually apply for a copyright, a written document, a certificate that gives you the licensing for this copyright. So it costs $35. You'd have to fill out a form here at copyright.gov, supply a copy of the picture or the poem or the song, whatever you've created, and they will review it, make sure that you didn't steal it from somebody else and are just trying to get the copyright. And then they'll come back and give you that certificate that says you own it. The only time I've ever really seen that is something you want to do is if you're a corporation or a company and you don't want anyone else using specific artwork or drawings or things that you've created that are proprietary to your company. And so you might want to do that if you're a songwriter and you don't want anybody stealing that hit song that you're going to be coming out with. And so it just gives you the legal documentation that you were the first to do it. If you can prove you've got a file from when you mixed that song and created it, and the file is stamped with a certain date, then you'd be able to prove that you did it before this other person that stole the song, remixed it, and said it was their song. Okay, so that's copyright. be careful. There's a difference between patents, trademarks. All of these are different. A patent is really something that's a technical. So a patent is a technical creation. Sometimes it can be programming, but most of the time it's creating a new engineering or way of doing a process or something. So there is a difference between a patent, a trademark, a service mark, and a trademark would be the little TM or an R, registered trademark. Copyright is the C with the circle around it. And then a patent is much more expensive, and you can get a utility patent, a design patent, or even a plant patent when you make hybrid plants. And so I'll let you read some of this to understand the difference, because we're running out of time here. But you would have to definitely apply for a patent or a trademark protection. If you're creating a logo for a company, I highly recommend getting a trademark for that. What that means is nobody can use that likeness anywhere without your permission. So it protects you. Now, these are legal things: copyrights, patents, trademarks. Guess what? They're US, United States. Now, if we look at the global, people are constantly developing products overseas, and sometimes they'll see something that was developed in the United States and they'll make a knockoff of that. In certain countries, they're not covered by US patents. We have the ability or the right with the NATO countries and with other countries that say they will honor our trademarks, copyrights, and patents. So if someone stole a song and made it in their own language overseas, the melody, then we could go to court in that country and keep them from publishing that song. There are other countries where we cannot do that, or they don't recognize our patent office. So the bad thing is, even if we get a copyright or patent or trademark, we may not be legally covered. And lots of people now just post their pictures. How many of you have ever seen a meme or something on Facebook or Instagram or something that you liked? You downloaded it, you texted it to a friend and said, look at this, isn't this a riot? You've just broken copyright. That's copyright infringement. You've broken the law. So what we're finding is with the internet, everything is now open. And so what we need to do is find a different way of letting people know how we want our artwork used. That's Creative Commons, or Creative Commons is one way of doing this. And so Creative Commons gives us the ability to share our work, especially online, and all we have to do is tell it how we want the work to be shared. So hold on. Let me see if we want to share the work. You notice some of these, let's see. Come on. This should be going to this web page, but it's not. Hold on. Where am I? Creative Commons. Yeah, this is right. Okay. And so there it is. I don't know why it wasn't clicking before, but we can add a different type of, it's not copyright because it's not going through the Copyright Office, but it's letting you know this is a license of how you can use my song or my photograph or my drawings that I've created. And what it will do is if you hit get started, it will go through and it will evaluate, ask you questions for how you can use or remix your images. And so we have all these attributions, and attributions are just how you can use it. You can use it unlimited, or you can use it if you ask my permission, or you can use it if you give me credit every time you use it. So photographed by Sandy Fuse. So these are some of the different ways. And how do we do that? We would put this into the copyright area. So if I'm on Google Images, let's say in Google, I go to Google Images. And if I said North Shore Community College, let's see what images are out there. We've got a lot of images. Now, when this comes up, remember these images they found on a website. These are not just images that are in a big folder somewhere on the web that are there for us to take. These are owned by somewhere. So this one is posted on the Massachusetts Association of Community Colleges website. This one is on the North Shore website. And so we have to understand that when we click on one of these pictures, there may be someone else that owns it, or there is someone else that owns it. One of the things we could do is see these tools. If I'm in Google Images and look at tools, I can look for large pictures, full color pictures, clip art or GIFs or line, and we have usage rights. So look at all the pictures of North Shore that we have up here. But if I go into usage rights and say, no, I want to be able to use any of these pictures. And so let's look for a Creative Commons license that allows me to use it. These two right here are the only North Shore pictures that are actually North Shore. These are all something else. These are the only two that it found on the whole web that you can use without getting permission. So this is licensable. So once you get this and it says that you can license it, you just need to figure out when you download this, what kind of license it has. And that way you'll know. So how do we know what license it has? If I'm in, say, Adobe Bridge, and I'm getting close to the end of the class, so I want to maybe just 4 more minutes talking about this, and then we'll move from there. But Adobe Bridge is a way that we can look at a picture, and I think I downloaded one of the downloads of North Shore, one of those North Shore pictures before. So let's see, this is the Danvers campus. So when I look at this picture, this is the Danvers campus as you walk in, and I can see this. But when I go to Adobe Bridge, what this allows me to do is look at the data that's stored in the header of an image. So in this header, you'll notice this is the name of the file. This is how big it is. It's red, green, and blue. Great. But then as I look down in this, there's all sorts of other information I can put in here. I could put a copyright that this is public domain. That means anybody can use it. Or when I publish this picture, I can say that it's copywritten. I could also put usage rights. I could put in copyright S. Fuse 2023.
Will we have a chance to like actually have a project to do this? Like,
yes, as a matter of
Awesome.
fact, for now on, all of your images, if you take pictures, I would highly recommend that you do this. And so by putting this in here and then saving this file, and I can put in even under the creator, I can put who I am, my name in here. I can put my address, my website, and an email address. So if somebody wants to get in touch with me and say, can I use this image? All of this is stored in the header of a file. So now that I've said apply to this picture, it's in there. And so all they have to do is, and also one other thing that would be nice to have in here are the keywords. So when we're looking at all of these images, how does Google find pictures? Keywords. So if I said NSCC, comma, college, comma, North Shore, by having keywords in here, when you post a picture onto a website and then a search engine goes, it looks for the keywords or the description or the header on a web page. That's how it finds these images. So as soon as we do that, these keywords are now searchable. So if someone goes into Google and says, search for NSCC images, it will bring this up. And then if it said public domain down here instead of copyrighted, it would show up on this page, because this page was the one that said that it's open to licenses or it's totally clear, which is what public domain would give you. Okay, so if you're looking for pictures, the easiest thing you can do is either pay for pictures, which is going to stock photography sites, go to a photographer, hire them to take the pictures, or look for something that's already usable, like Creative Commons licenses. And then you could download it. And as long as you follow what the license is, and how do you figure out the license? Each one of these Creative Commons licenses has a different look to it. So this one, Creative Commons CC, and then you can use this and remix it, change it, do whatever, and you can use it for any use, but you must give credit to the creator. So that's, if you see this CC with this little person with BY under it, that's how you can use a picture. So each one of these is a different type of Creative Commons, but they let you use the picture. They just say only non-commercial use, say for this one, no money. So you can't take my picture of North Shore Community College and put it on a t-shirt and start selling those t-shirts with North Shore Community College picture on it, because that picture said you could not use it to make money off of the picture. You could only use it, say, on your website or on a blog or in a newspaper or magazine. Okay. All right. We don't have time enough to talk about AI. So remind me next class and let's talk about AI and how copyright is getting totally messed up with AI. Okay. Last thing, we need to make sure that you know what's due next class. So if I go into February 6th, you are going to be doing this assignment for next class. Here's the assignment sheet. It's right in the February 6th. If you click on it, it will tell you, find a picture of yourself, save it, and then in Photoshop, save it as a PSD and do something to it. And then save it as a JPEG, do something else using the menus at the top of this window, using the toolbox on the left, do something else to the picture and save it as a TIFF. And then create a folder, put all of those images into the folder, compress it, and remember to compress a file. If you're on top of a folder like this cars right here, all I do is right click and it asks, do you want to compress? Or on Windows, it might say send to a zip file, a compressed zip file. So you're going to create one file. So it would create this document right here. And then I'm going to upload that into the Dropbox. Dropbox for projects, image 1. And so here's where I would browse local files, find this zip file that I created on my desktop. And that was toys. So I find this zip file, upload it, and then don't forget, you have to hit submit. Submit down here at the bottom of this window. Okay, so that's going to be what you need to do for, let's see, I'm going to cancel this. So for this week, you are doing that. And reading chapter 2 and working on these assignment pages at the end of chapter 2. Okay. I also have in that module, the copyright.gov, patent office information, Creative Commons, and the ethics. So if you want to link these or make a bookmark in your web browser, these are things you need to start keeping track of for future reference as you're creating artwork to make sure that everything's right. Any questions? We went through a lot there too.
Yes. This is gonna be our first submission.
That will be your first submission, other than doing the textbook readings and the textbook assignments.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? All right, then. Remember, if you have questions or you want a one-on-one tutoring session or something, send me an email and we'll set up a time when we can just do it one-on-one and you can ask specific questions. Okay, I want you to make sure this is one of the toughest things that this whole Zoom, when you're trying to show a computer screen, do something on your computer, my computer, and talk it out. I need to be able to see your head to say, oh, she doesn't quite understand, because she's giving me that, when I say, do you want to go out to my dogs? And they go, huh? What did she say? And so I want to make sure that I'm getting it and answering all of your questions. Okay. All right. So let's meet back here next Monday, unless we have something else that we want to do in between, and get in touch with me.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Bye.
long.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.